Good morning. Welcome to the Saturday Coffee Chat. It is the last Saturday of October, and we're talking about sugar, so trick or treat, right? And let me share my screen again. Okay, so welcome. And I wanted to start with a quote today. Start before you are ready. Don't prepare, begin. And that's by Mel Robbins. And we'll be diving deeper into all things Mel Robbins next month. But I love this quote because I think a lot of us get caught up in the beginning part. I feel like we aren't ready and we need to do something more before we can be ready. And really, we just need to begin. So a couple announcements before we dive into our topic of sugar. We are having a post-Halloween 3-day refresh, Candy Crush, Sugar Crush. So if you have a 3-day refresh kit, definitely want to jump in with us. Deb created the group, so it's available to request to join. Even if you don't have a 3-day refresh kit, I think it would be beneficial for you to jump in there if you feel like you need help breaking some sugar habits or some junk food. So, because we're going to start with our brain. So we'll start talking about things, and then November theme is gains and gratitude. So with the 3-day refresh, we are going to lose some bad habits, some things that aren't serving us. And then in November, we are going to gain. We're going to look at the things we're gaining, and the positive, and then focusing too on gratitude. So we'll gain a new perspective with more gratitude. And just to reiterate that Peppermint Mocha Shakeology seasonal release starts on November 2nd. So if you're interested in getting one of the 14 packet boxes of those, that's available November 2nd. And then, good morning, baby Seth. Mel Robbins, The High Five Habit. I encourage you to get it on Audible and just listen to it in your net time, your no extra time, as you're showering, getting ready for the day, driving to work, coming home. Some really, really good information. And, when Mel Robbins does her Audible, she always adds a little extra in them. I enjoy listening to them. And she has really good case study kind of analogies. So it's practical advice. All right, so sugar, trick or treat? It's not a trick question. So there's so much we can talk about when it comes to sugar. So I'm just going to focus on a couple of things and how it affects our body. But sugar, so glucose is the breakdown of sugar. It comes from the Greek word for sweet, and it's a type of sugar you get from the foods we eat, from the starches, from the quinoa, from really everything. But some provide more dense source of it than others. And our body uses it for energy. And that glucose travels through our bloodstream to our cells. And that's where we get the blood sugar term. And then insulin is released when glucose is entered into the system. And insulin being a hormone that moves the glucose through our blood into the cells for energy and then storage if we have excess. So we know that, and this is all good because our brain is almost solely this is its almost sole energy source for our brain. That's why when we're eating too much or too little, that we have the brain fog, and we're going to talk about some of those things here in a second. So glucose is good, but it's when we are eating some of the other things. So hello, my name is sugar, right? It comes in so many different terms. And not all of them, sugar is not inherently, it is not bad. It's, but the way that we've manufactured it or engineered it can be. So we're going to focus on fructose, and things like high fructose corn syrup. Those kinds of things are not really good for us at all. So too much fructose, and I'm going to show you this 4-minute video. She calls it fructose, which I think is kind of cool because it's like almost a curse word. So too much fructose can damage your liver like too much alcohol. So 31% of adults in the US and 13% of kids have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So kind of the same fatty liver disease that you get when you drink too much alcohol. And we're going to look at how this plays a part in a cycle of chronic illnesses and conditions. So fructose, so we have nutrient-rich, fibrous foods, the carbs, which is where most of our energy source comes from, that breaks down quickly into energy for us, like fruits, is a natural source of fructose, but that's the good kind that comes with the fiber, and the nutrients that come with the different types of fruits. We also get it from breads, rice, quinoa, grains, vegetables, but it comes with the fiber, and that helps slow down the absorption of the fructose. But then on the other side of the scale, we have the nutrient for low fiber to no fiber, quote unquote, food that so many of us consume. And you're going to see, in this video that I'm going to show you here in a second, how it affects us from the moment that we eat it. So what does sugar actually do? Oh, yay, it's going to play. So it's a 4-minute video, really good.
It's interesting.
Can you see that okay?
When we design our studies, we provide diets that are high in starch, and then we take away that starch and replaced it with sugar.
So this is a study that was done.
Why do we even see such unfavorable effects when we replace pasta, or let's say bread, with a fructose sweetened beverage, or let's even say a high fructose corn syrup sweetened beverage? Well, to answer that question, we're going to start first with the glucose. All the grains that we eat and we call carbs are pretty much pure glucose, and it goes into our bloodstream slowly because it takes a while for those enzymes in the intestine to break it all down. The glucose leaves the intestine in what we call the portal vein, and that vein's first stop is the liver. If the liver needs energy, that liver is going to pull the glucose in. If the liver has enough energy, most of the glucose bypasses the liver and is delivered to the rest of the body. It gets to be used by any other place in the body that needs glucose. Now with fructose, it's different. We're talking about fructose in the fructose sweetened beverages are subjects consumed, but we're also talking about the fructose in sodas because high fructose corn syrup contains fructose. So fructose is in the intestine, and it too is delivered directly to the liver. However, there's an enzyme there that's always turned on. So it takes any fructose it can get its hands on, even if the liver has enough energy. Very little fructose gets delivered to the rest of the body. So what we end up is this fructose overload in the liver. It needs to start storing it as fat. When you increase your levels of liver fat, you're going to have more fat heading out into the blood. With more fat heading out in the blood, you end up with higher levels of triglyceride and cholesterol, both of them risk factors for cardiovascular disease. There's another problem. We believe liver fat decreases insulin's ability to do its job. That increases our risk of diabetes. There's another problem. When your insulin isn't working well, it also causes more fructose to be turned into fat. And it also is going to increase the amount of fat the liver sends into the blood. There's another problem. The group that consumed fructose tended to gain that weight within the abdominal cavity. This is what we call visceral fat that makes us apple-shaped. So what we have is this vicious cycle going on. That's really why metabolic syndrome tends to be a group of problems. They make this little vicious cycle where one makes the other worse, and they just go around in this circle. But what we all need to do is get to the point where sugar is a special occasion food. It's not a staple. And that's where we need to think about our foods and what they can be doing to our health.
Are you wondering how much sugar you're eating?
Okay, let me make sure this stops.
That's
In the
a
past few
really good video.
What was that?
I said that's a really good video.
Yeah, okay. Let me stop sharing. Yeah, I thought that was really good. Well done, short, succinct. The visuals are good. So let me share my screen again. Let's see what happened here. Where it went. Why I lose things.
Back arrow.
Oh, maybe, huh? You're so smart. Okay. All right. Okay, so don't look. All right, so your body, as we just saw, produces or processes fructose and glucose differently. And the result is when we have too much fructose, insulin resistance and diabetes, weight gain, heart disease, blocked arteries, high cholesterol, and a host of other things. Like this is, how one thing kind of tends to create other things. But when you're eating, the glucose and the body processes, what that does result is it creates your energy. And then the extra energy is stored for later, like spare batteries. Obviously, balance is the key. But so early signs of too much sugar intake, which again, this is this cycle that happens, which this looks like I didn't, like a sad face, one-eyed sad face. You get the weight gain, obviously, particularly around the belly. So if you got belly fat, you get that pear shape or apple shape, and that typically happens with me. Unhealthy skin, you'll start breaking out. You'll have less elasticity. Mood swings, of course, slow, lethargic, and unmotivated, fuzzy or cloudy mind. Like this is describing me right now. And that leads to these things: obesity, insulin resistance, diabetes, fatty liver, clogged arteries, heart malfunctions, increased uric acid levels. And that the uric acid actually builds up this crystallized matter that can cause the inflammation. It can cause joint pain. It affects your bones and our tissues. So inflammation is a huge result of too much sugar intake. So just stop, right? When we did the ultimate reset and we had the third week of breakfast was just like 3 cups of fruit, that really affected me. And that was natural fructose, but this cycle kind of got triggered for me. And this is what happens. So sugar and your brain. Now, cue the ice cream cone or the chocolate, and at a certain level, this can even happen with natural sugars like fruit. You know, your brain sees the tasty treat, dopamine's released, you get this quick burst of energy, and then once you consume the sweet treat or the sweet food, you know, it releases some opioids, which are also the same kind of, that causes cravings, the same kind that would be in, not unlike addictions of, you know, nicotine or drugs, or, and then, so that happens in our brain. And then obviously we crash after the sugar. And that brings us back to that cue of, we start to reach for the sweet food or the caffeine, or, you know, donuts or bread, those carbs, because we're, you know, trying to get that energy back, trying to get that good feeling back, which then just creates this other cycle of cravings. So the opioids and that pleasure center release of the endorphins, it creates this habit that happens without you even realizing it's happening. And so simply put, the more sugar you eat, the more sugar you crave, no matter what form it's in. For me, like even that fruit that I was eating, I wasn't eating it with any protein or any fat. And for me, I went through this cycle of craving sugar big time. So, so this is the other cycle that it creates. So what do you do? And obviously, you know me, I'm going to tell you to meal plan, just so that you have your healthy foods on hand, and a variety of them. So we don't want to eat just, our body starts to, when we're eating the same foods, your body kind of loses its like pleasure in having that food. And so then you're it affects your metabolism. So having different foods helps kind of like, I don't want to say shock, but it triggers your brain and your pleasure center to react to this new taste or this new texture, or, you know, and it spikes that pleasure center that way without, and kind of keeps you more, your body more engaged with the food that you're eating, which is a terrible way to say it. But so start before you're ready. So the other, you know, with our brain, when we see a treat and we get cued on that, and then we, it releases this dopamine, and we have this burst of energy and this excitement. The kind of the opposite happens when you first think of or are faced with something you don't want to do. It's kind of the doubt, the excuses kick in. And I know this happens a lot when we think about meal planning. I know it did for me, especially in the beginning. So start before you're ready. Don't prepare, just begin. And we can begin with the 3-day refresh or even getting in there and just being mindful of the foods that you're eating if you're not actually doing the 3-day refresh, to break that cycle. And then, so you can join us in the Sugar Crush group, also in the Gains and Gratitude Boot Camp. And then on the next coffee chat, I just threw this in here, Deb, we'll just talk about the High Five Habit, some of the principles in that book. So we kind of give just an overview of some of the things that we'll be talking about in November. So trick or treat. All right, that was short and sweet. Just the one thing, like the fructose, again, it's naturally occurs in fruit and other foods. That video was about a study they did just to see how its effects are on the liver, on the body, you know, versus glucose, the traditional. And so what happens is that fructose is just an easier, they've engineered it, stripped away the fiber to make it something that they can, as an additive, to foods. And that's why we talk about how much sugar we're eating a year that we don't even realize we're eating, because it's in everything. Obviously sweet drinks, but granolas and pasta and some pre-made soups and energy drinks. And that just is a dump into the body. Fructose also impedes the appetite centers in your brain. So you feel more hungry more often, and you feel full less often. So it's those hormones, ghrelin and leptin. It affects that. Yeah. So that's what I had. Just look at my hands. So, any questions on that? Any comments? Sheila?
I just had, are you gonna do a book in November?
The High Five Habit.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if that was a book. Okay, thank
It's
you.
a book, and like, I know a lot of us are struggling with actual time to sit down and read. So I encourage you to get it on Audible. Makes the commute.
This was a lot of good info. I didn't realize that sugar was just like alcohol, although there's a lot of sugar in alcohol, so it only makes sense.
Yeah.
But it brings it to light in kids.
Yes.
So, and you know what? It explains some things going on with me too. So thank you.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad it was helpful, enlightening.
Mhm.
And like I said, when you get into looking at sugar and you just Google effects on the body, and you can go in lots of directions. And I just saw that video on the fatty liver and how that affects us, that we, like the belly fat. It's like it does that. You get that belly fat the same as, like, if you're drinking too much and you get the beer belly, it's the same thing. And
Okay.
that's my problem, Mary.
Ken said
Oh
that
yeah.
viscerous fat is just really hard to get rid of, because it's that one added layer above your abdominal, and I didn't realize how much the fatty liver actually contributes to that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Very
Yeah, that visceral fat, it surrounds your organs and and it can actually compress them, right? So they don't function like they should. And then it creates the belly fat. And I say belly fat, but for me it goes like down to the hips too.
Yeah, it's there.
It's a true, I'm a pear, I think.
Me too.
Yeah, so obviously Halloween, trick or treat. My office has a bowl of candy all the time. And I've been better about not digging into it, but it's my downfall. I definitely have a sugar addiction lurking in my brain. But the awareness is the first step to, like, changing anything. Just being aware of your habits, being aware of how it's affecting your body, and take, like the quote, just begin doing something different.
Yeah.
I mean, and just know, like, sugar is not bad. Our body needs it, but in pure form, through the foods we eat. So it's really picking those nutrient dense foods, making sure you have the fiber, balancing your macros. So when you're eating carbs, you got a protein or the fat, trying to keep that balanced so that it absorbs into your bloodstream slower. Your body is able to utilize it better and uptake that better. So, and it's all just common sense, which is hard when you're an emotional eater, or life is like stressing you out or you haven't had enough sleep. Yeah, all the things, right? Yep.
Well, thank you, Louise.
Yeah. Yeah. Encourage you, if this piqued your interest, just Google, I go to YouTube and just Google, sugar effects on the body, and you'll get, there was a couple little short TED Talks and things like that.
Okay.
It's just very enlightening. And I think when we empower ourselves with that information, we can, we're more armed to make better choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So excited about November, gains and gratitude. I can't believe it's November.
I like it because it starts on a Monday. Clean slate.
Right. Yep. All right. Any final comments? I'm gonna go suck this down. The kid. Oh. All right. Karen.
No, I was just gonna say goodbye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Bye.
ladies, for getting on this morning. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
And I'll see you in the group and see you next
Yeah.
time.
Bye.
Bye.
It's really good seeing you, Louise.
Yeah, good to see you too. Bye.
Bye.